Have you ever looked around and realized the phone isn't ringing like it used to? The group you once belonged to doesn't meet anymore. Or if it does, you just don't feel like going. Maybe the people you considered close have drifted, off in their own directions, busy with family, health issues, or their own quiet routines. And then maybe a thought crosses your mind that feels uncomfortable at first. Do I even need friends anymore? Now I know that sounds a little bold, maybe even a little sad at first. But today I want to challenge that idea, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Because after 70, you've earned the right to think differently about friendship. And what if I told you that not needing friends the way you once did could actually be a sign of wisdom, strength, and peace? You see, for most of our lives, we're taught that having friends is a must. From childhood to adulthood, our social lives are used to define our value, our identity, even our success. But after a certain age, especially past 70, things shift, and what used to serve you may no longer fit. This video is not about isolating yourself or giving up on human connection. Not at all. It's about understanding that friendship in older age looks different, and sometimes you might not need it in the same way you did before. And that's okay. In fact, it can be a beautiful thing. Let's start with the first truth. When you reach your 70s, your peace becomes more important than popularity. Think about it. How much energy did you spend over the years trying to maintain relationships, trying to please people, show up to things, check in, remember birthdays, deal with drama, misunderstandings, hurt feelings? At this point in life, that kind of emotional labor can feel exhausting, not enriching. You realize that peace of mind, waking up with no obligations, no unnecessary noise, is priceless. It's not about being lonely. It's about being at peace. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You're not trying to fit in, impress anyone, or be part of a crowd. You've seen enough life to know that your value doesn't come from your social calendar. It comes from within, from being content in your own company, from finding joy in small, quiet moments, your morning routine, your garden, your hobbies, your thoughts. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop chasing friendships that no longer serve you, you create space for real inner peace to take root. The second truth is this. After 70, you've likely outgrown shallow connections. Not everyone who calls themselves a friend is truly there for you. Over the years, we all gather relationships that feel more like habits than genuine bonds. Maybe they were based on convenience, shared routines, or just the fact that you saw each other every week. But when life slows down, and you're no longer working or going to the same events, those connections fade. And that's not always a bad thing. You start to see more clearly who actually knows your heart, and who doesn't. And in many cases, those people are no longer around. Some have passed away. Some moved. Some simply changed. And chasing after new social connections just for the sake of having them doesn't always feel right anymore. You don't need dozens of people around you if none of them really see you. It's far more meaningful to enjoy solitude, or one or two heartfelt connections, than to fill your time with surface-level conversations that leave you feeling more empty than full. This brings us to something even more powerful. Over time, you discover that being comfortable alone is a form of emotional maturity. Now, I know people often say that humans are social creatures, and we are. But not all forms of connection come from traditional friendships. Sometimes the connection we need most is with ourselves, with our past, our present, our purpose. After 70, many people say they begin to feel a kind of settling, a deeper understanding of who they are and what matters. You might start enjoying your own company in a way you never did before. You read, you reflect more. You walk not to talk with someone, but to listen to the world around you and to your own heart. Being alone doesn't mean being lonely. There's a quiet strength that comes with learning how to be with yourself, without distraction, without reaching for your phone, without needing someone to fill the silence. And the best part? That kind of peace is unshakable. You're no longer reliant on someone else's mood to feel good. You don't need a friend's validation to know your worth. You don't need a dinner invitation to feel like you belong. You belong right here, in your own skin, in your own thoughts, in your own stillness. Now, some people might hear all this and worry, but won't I become too isolated? And that's a fair concern. But independence is not the same as isolation. You can love people deeply, stay connected to family, chat with neighbors, even enjoy community events, while still embracing the idea that you don't need friends in the traditional sense to feel whole. You've done the years of group outings, birthday parties, chit-chat. Now, it's okay if your version of connection looks different, because maybe, just maybe, you've become your own best friend, and that brings us to something really special I want to talk about next. When friendship becomes less about others and more about how you care for your spirit, your boundaries, and your joy. When you start to view independence not as a loss, but as a gain, everything shifts. You begin to recognize that the best kind of friendship isn't always external. It can be how gently you speak to yourself, how much grace you give your past, how often you choose peace over people-pleasing. Because here's the thing. For most of your life, you probably poured so much of yourself into others. Children, grandchildren, your spouse, co-workers, friends, even neighbors. And it's beautiful. It's what made you loving, generous, dependable. But now it's your turn. After 70, it becomes less about what others need from you, and more about what you need to feel fulfilled. And that brings us to the next truth. You don't need friends after 70 if you finally learned how to enjoy your own rhythm. Let me explain. When you're younger, your life tends to move in sync with others. You eat lunch when your co-workers do. You go to events when your friends are free. You compromise on where to go, when to meet, how long to stay. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's part of being social. But at some point, when you no longer have to work or raise a family or juggle obligations, you wake up and realize, I can finally live on my time. And that's freeing. You get to wake up when your body feels ready, not when someone calls or knocks on the door. You can eat when you're hungry, rest when you're tired, walk when you feel like moving. You can rearrange your furniture without asking for anyone's opinion. You can watch what you like on TV, read for hours without interruption, and enjoy a cup of coffee in complete silence. That's not loneliness. That's luxury. There is something deeply rewarding about falling into your own natural rhythm, without feeling rushed, interrupted, or distracted by the needs and schedules of others. You've earned that, and if you've reached this point in your life and find that you enjoy it, that you don't miss the constant calls or constant plans or constant company, that's not something to feel bad about. That's something to celebrate. Now, this next point might surprise you, but it's a powerful one. After 70, many people discover that fewer social ties can actually lead to less emotional stress. I know that sounds backwards. We're told that more friends mean more happiness, but anyone who's lived long enough knows that's not always the case. Sometimes having more people in your life means more tension, more unspoken expectations, more disagreements, more disappointments. You know that friend who always talks but never listens? The one who drains your energy or always seems to need something? Or the ones who argue over small things, gossip, or hold grudges from 5 years ago? At this stage of life, that kind of emotional noise becomes too heavy, and you start to ask, is it really worth it? Letting go of draining friendships doesn't mean you're cold or bitter. It means you're wise enough to protect your peace. You no longer have to tolerate drama out of politeness. You don't need to keep people around just because you've known them for a long time. Loyalty is beautiful, but not when it comes at the cost of your emotional well-being. You deserve to feel light, to feel free, to spend your days laughing, resting, thinking, and enjoying the moment, not recovering from someone else's emotional mess. And that leads us to something even deeper. By the time you're in your 70s, you begin to see that solitude is sacred. Now, that word, solitude, it's often misunderstood. People hear it and think of loneliness. But they're not the same. Loneliness is feeling empty. Solitude is feeling full, with just yourself. Solitude is sitting by a window and feeling the sun on your face. Solitude is hearing your thoughts clearly because no one else is speaking over them. Solitude is knowing that your joy doesn't depend on a full room, but on a full heart. And the truth is, very few people ever learn how to be truly at peace alone. But when you do, you unlock something powerful. You no longer fear silence. You no longer chase connection just to fill a void. You no longer need anyone to tell you you're enough, you know it. That's the kind of strength that comes with age, with experience, with having lived through loss and still choosing to smile. So if you've ever looked at your life and thought, I don't have as many friends as I used to, remember, that might not be a bad thing. It might be a sign that you're finally living life on your terms, that you've released the need for constant companionship in exchange for peace, clarity, and freedom. And that's a gift, one that only comes with age and wisdom. Now let's go even deeper, because next we'll talk about how independence after 70 opens the door to creativity, growth, and the kind of self-discovery that many people never reach. You know, there's something incredible that begins to happen when your days are quieter, when your phone rings less, when you're not rushing to meet someone for lunch or bending your schedule to fit someone else's plans. That space, that stillness, it becomes fertile ground for something most people never expect in their 70s. Self-discovery. Because here's the surprising truth. When you spend less time managing relationships, you have more time to rediscover parts of yourself you may have forgotten. You start asking questions you might have buried for years. What do I still want to experience? What part of me have I never fully explored? What lights me up, just for me? And that's one of the most beautiful reasons independence matters after 70. It opens the door to late-life creativity and curiosity. Maybe you pick up a paintbrush for the first time in decades. Maybe you start writing, not for anyone else to read, just to get your thoughts out. Maybe you finally dig into your family history, take a solo trip, learn a language, or even plant that little herb garden you always said you would. You see, when you stop filling your calendar with obligations to others, you create space for passion. And it's not too late. It's never too late. Some of the most incredible chapters in life begin after 70. When you finally feel free to explore not what the world expects from you, but what you want from the world. This kind of independence isn't about being alone. It's about being aligned with yourself. And what many people don't realize is that this alignment actually protects your energy. Which brings us to another powerful truth. When you stop chasing social validation, you start preserving your emotional health. Let's be honest. For years, many of us were conditioned to seek approval. We wanted to be liked, appreciated, included. We said yes when we wanted to say no. We attended events we didn't enjoy, made small talk we didn't care for, and kept people in our lives who didn't always bring us peace, just to avoid feeling left out. But at some point, you wake up and realize your time and energy are sacred. And when you reach that level of awareness, you no longer feel bad for saying no without a reason. You no longer feel guilty for choosing rest over dinner plans, or peace over parties, or solitude over small talk. You start doing things for yourself, not to impress, not to maintain appearances, but because it simply feels right. That kind of freedom, that emotional clarity, is one of the greatest gifts of growing older. And what's even more powerful is this. When you stop seeking constant connection, the relationships that do remain become deeper, more genuine, more meaningful. Because You're no longer surrounding yourself out of habit or fear. You're choosing who's truly good for your heart. Now, there's one more point we need to talk about, and it may be the most important of all. When you learn to embrace your independence after 70, you stop fearing the idea of being alone, and that changes everything. Because one of the deepest fears many people carry as they get older is the fear of isolation. The idea that one day they might not have anyone around. But here's what you need to know. Being alone doesn't mean being lonely. When you trust yourself to enjoy your own company, when you learn how to soothe your own emotions, entertain your own mind, and care for your own needs, you become incredibly resilient. You become the kind of person who doesn't just survive solitude, you thrives in it. You walk through life with a calm confidence, a quiet joy, an inner peace that says, I am enough, this moment is enough, I don't need noise to feel alive. And that is rare. That is powerful. So if you're someone who's noticed your social circle getting smaller, if you sometimes feel like you've drifted away from old friends or you're no longer interested in constantly being around others, that doesn't make you antisocial. That doesn't mean something is wrong. It might mean you're finally stepping into your most authentic season of life, a season where you answer only to your own joy, where you make decisions that honor your peace, where you spend your days doing what feels good to your soul, not what looks good to others. That's the kind of life that brings real happiness after 70. If you're watching this and nodding your head thinking, yes, I feel this, then know you're not alone. You are part of a growing number of wise, self-aware seniors who have realized that after a lifetime of giving, caring, and showing up for everyone else, it's finally your time, not to impress, not to entertain, but simply to be free. Free to explore what brings you joy. Free to live quietly, boldly, peacefully, on your own terms, because sometimes the best kind of connection is the one you have with yourself. Now that we've walked through the deeper reasons why independence after 70 can actually be a blessing, let's talk about what this means for your daily life. Because there's a quiet kind of power in waking up in the morning and knowing that the day ahead is yours. No one else's agenda. No guilt for canceling plans, no pressure to perform. Just a soft, slow kind of freedom where you get to decide how you spend your hours. And what makes this even more beautiful is how it allows you to connect more deeply with the little things. When your world isn't constantly buzzing with other people's energy, you begin to notice more. The smell of your morning coffee, the way the light comes through your window, the peaceful rhythm of a solo walk through your neighborhood. You learn to cherish stillness. You learn to listen to your own thoughts, not the noisy chatter of the world around you, but that quiet voice within you that's often been drowned out. And maybe for the first time in your life, you begin to truly hear yourself. That's what independence really is. It's not about isolating yourself from the world. It's about coming home to yourself. You start making choices not out of obligation but out of alignment. You go where your heart feels at peace. You say yes to the things that make you feel alive, not just busy. And here's the most incredible part. You don't just find peace, you protect it. After a certain age, you stop apologizing for protecting your space, your time, your energy. You stop justifying why you'd rather spend Sunday with a book than at a noisy gathering. You stop feeling guilty for unfollowing, unsubscribing, or distancing yourself from what no longer serves you. Because you realize peace is priceless. You've earned the right to curate your life. And this curation, this gentle filtering of what comes into your world, is how you create a retirement that doesn't just look good on the outside, but feels good on the inside. And if you're thinking, but what about love? What about connection? Isn't that still important? Of course it is. But the beautiful shift is this. When you no longer need connection to feel complete, the connections you do allow in become more meaningful. You're no longer building relationships from a place of lack, but from a place of wholeness. You'll find yourself drawn to kind souls, not just familiar faces. You'll prioritize people who truly uplift you, who respect your boundaries, who don't drain your spirit. And if that ends up being just 1 or 2 people instead of 20, that's not a loss. That's clarity. Because at this stage of life, quality beats quantity every time. So yes, it's okay if your phone doesn't buzz all day. It's okay if your weekends are quiet. It's okay if you've become your own best friend. Because here's what no one tells you when you're younger. There is something deeply fulfilling about becoming self-sufficient, not just physically but emotionally. To know that no matter what life brings, no matter who stays or goes, you have you. You have your strength, your wisdom, your calm. That's not loneliness, that's maturity. That's inner peace. That's the result of a life well lived and lessons deeply learned. So if you're in your 70s or beyond, and you've been wondering whether you're losing friends or pulling away from people, ask yourself this: am I losing people or finally choosing myself? Because sometimes what looks like disconnection from the outside is actually reconnection with the soul. And that's not something to fear. That's something to celebrate. Before we close, let me leave you with this. You are not alone, just because you are on your own. You are not less than for craving solitude. You are not behind because your social circle is smaller now. You are wise. You are free. And you are entering one of the most powerful, peaceful, and purposeful chapters of your life. Live it boldly. Live it honestly. Live it for you. If this message resonated with you, if it reminded you of your own strength, your own worth, or your own path, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more uplifting, thoughtful content made just for you. Here's to embracing your independence, honoring your peace, and living your best years with courage and joy. I'll see you in the next video.